Any idea about Java? Do you hear me? Okay. So what's the meaning of server-side programming? When we create an HTML document and we use JavaScript and DOM in this HTML document, we can create dynamic HTML. But JavaScript is considered as client-side programming. Okay. Similarly, web server response can be static or dynamic. That means if we have a server and we send a request to this server, the response of this server can be static or dynamic. Static when we request an HTML document, a static HTML document. So HTML document is retrieved from the file system of our server and returned to the client. And dynamic, so HTML document is generated by a program. Can you give me an example of a program that generates a dynamic HTML document on the server? An example of a language. Very good. So PHP is an example of a program that generates a dynamic HTML document as a response to an HTTP request. Also, Java servlets are one technology for producing dynamic server responses. And servlet is a class instantiated by the server to produce a dynamic response. It is clear? So, like PHP, now we will learn together Java servlets. So, Java servlet is a class, a Java class. It is a special Java class, and this class can produce dynamic server responses. Any questions? Okay. Just a moment, please. Servlet overview. So here we have a web server. In our example, when we use Java servlets, our web server can be Apache Tomcat. So Apache Tomcat is our web server. Here we have our client. So our client is just a web browser. So our client sent an HTTP request to our web server, and this request is to execute a special servlet, a particular servlet. So the web server sends also the request and response objects. The servlet processes the request and create or modify the response object. After that, the servlet sends the modified response object to the web server, and the web server sends the HTTP response to the client, and the client displays this response. It is clear? This schema is clear. Any questions about? Okay. So when server starts, it instantiates servlets. So here we have a web server and many servlets. For example, exercise1.class, exercise2.class. So exercise1 and exercise2 are two servlets in our web server. So in PHP we can find exercise1.php, exercise2.php, but for servlets we have to find exercise1.class and exercise2.class. Why the extension is .class here? Why .class? So .class because the servlet is the servlet is what? What is a servlet? Yes, because servlet is not Java client. Servlet is a Java class. Yes, it is a class, a Java class. And when we want to execute a class, we have to compile this class and to produce the .class file. It is clear? This is in Java. Okay. After that, the server receives HTTP request, determines need for dynamic response, and selects the appropriate servlet to generate the response, create request response objects, and passes them to a method on the servlet instance. So our server has many servlets, and when it receives an HTTP request, it must select the appropriate servlet to generate the response. So servlet adds information to response object via method calls, and server generates HTTP response based on information stored in response object. Any questions about this cycle? Good. This is an example of a hello servlet. Okay? So if we want to create a servlet, we use public class. This is the name of our servlet. So in our example, the name is servlet hello. After that, we have to write extends HTTP servlet. So if we want to create a Java servlet, our class must instantiate HTTP servlet. It is clear? After that, we have to write public void doget. So here doget to respond to any HTTP GET request. If we have a POST request, here we will write for POST request. We have to modify doget by do POST. Yes. So doGet is what here? What represents doGet? Here we have a class and doGet. Yes, very good. It's a method. So in application, in Java application, we create public static void main. But in servlet, we create doGet or doPost or both. It is clear? So doGet to response all the HTTP GET requests and doPost to response all HTTP POST requests. So in this method doGet we have how many arguments? 2. Very good. The first one is an object. Our object is request. So this is an object. The type of this object is HTTP servlet request. It is clear? The second is response. And the type of this response is HTTP servlet response. Throw servlet exception, input output exception. That means this method can produce a servlet exception or input output exception. Any questions? Okay. So the first step when we create a servlet is to set the HTTP content type and response header. This is the first step. So what is set content type? What represents set content type? Set content type is a method. A method. Where can I find this method? This method is an HTTP servlet response class. So what's the meaning of, response is an object. The class is HTTP servlet response. What's the meaning of response.setContentType text HTML? That means when I will send you a response, this response is a text. The type of this response is the type of this response is an HTML code. I can, for example, send a response as an image, a GIF image, or as an Excel sheet, or as a Word file. But in our example, our response is an HTML code. So the first step when I want to create a servlet, I have to set the HTTP content type and response header. I just write response.setContentType. After that, I have to provide the appropriate type. In my case here, my example, this type is an HTML code. It is clear? Okay, second step here, we have to prepare a print writer object for creating the body of the response. So in Java, when I prepare a normal class, a desktop application, for example, and I want to display my result in my screen, for example, I have to write what? So in Java, to display anything, I have to write what? I have to write system.out.println. But here, for a servlet, I have to prepare a print writer. Here in my example, the print writer is servlet out. This is the name of my print writer. And to create this print writer, I have just to invoke the method getWriter in response. So when I write response.getWriter, that means I invoke the method getWriter in the object response. Like this, set content type in the object response. So servlet out here, not to display, but to prepare my response. Like system.out.println, here I will write, for example, servlet out.print hello. So my response in this case will be just the string hello. So the response that will be sent by our server to the client is the string hello, for example. It is clear? Okay. So keep in mind that all servlets we will write are subclasses of HTTP servlet, and server calls do-get in response to get request, server calls do-post in response to post request. HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response are interfaces implemented by request response objects, and servlet exception, input output exception. This exception can be produced by the servlet. So also keep in mind that the first two things done by typical servlet must be in the order. The first one is response.setContentType text HTML. The second one is print writer servlet out equal response.getWriter. So the first instruction sets the HTTP content type and response header, and the second instruction obtain a print writer object for creating the body of the response. So the print writer will be used to create the body of the response. Any questions? So we will use now servlet out dot println, and all this is the response. So here, for example, we will write doc type, public, etc., HTML head title. So here in our response, what is the title of when we display the response, or we display the response to this servlet? What is the title of our response? Title of the response. This is the title. So the title of our response is servlet hello.java. Servlet hello.java. It is clear? After that, in the body, here, this is the body. This body will be displayed as hello world. It is clear. Any questions about hello world servlet? So let's review together how we can create a servlet. To create a servlet, we have to create a class. This is the name of the class, extends HTTP servlet. We have also to create a method doGet or doPost in this servlet, and for this method we have two arguments, HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. This method can produce exception like servlet exception input output exception. After that we have to modify the content type of the response to text HTML. After that, we have to prepare a print writer for creating the body of the response. If we have this print writer, we can display our response by servlet out.println, and here we have to create the response of my servlet, and the last instruction is to close this print writer by servlet out.close. So servlet out.println HTML generated by calling print or println on the servlet's print writer object, and servlet out.close is a good practice to explicitly close the print writer when done. Let's compare now the servlets versus Java applications. So the first difference is servlets do not have a main. The main is in the server, and entry point to servlet code is via call to method. In our example, the method is doGet, but can be also doPost. Servlet interaction with end user is indirect via request response object API. Actual HTTP request response processing is handled by the server. Primary servlet output is typically HTML. Any questions? It is clear? Okay. Let's move now to running servlets. How we can create and run a servlet. So this is the simple way to run a servlet. First step is to compile the servlet, and we have to make sure that GWSDP libraries are on path. Second step is to copy .class file to shared classes directory. So in Apache Tomcat, we have in a folder web apps. So the equivalent of web apps in PHP is the www directory. Under web apps, we can create another folder for any application, and under this folder we have to create classes folder or classes directory. In this classes directory we have to copy the .class file. So all the servlets are saved in the classes directory. After that we have to start or restart the Tomcat web server. Why we have to restart the Tomcat web server here? Why? So we have to restart the Tomcat web server. Okay. Yes. So to get into consideration the new classes file, it is like a refresh. So let's suppose that our Tomcat server contains, for example, 3 servlets, and we add 2 servlets. There are 5 servlets in our server, but the server can only see 3. To see all the 5 servlets, we have to restart the Tomcat server. So if the class is named servlet hello, we have to browse HTTP localhost 8080 servlet hello. So this is the URL to execute servlet hello. It is clear? Any questions about running servlets? Let's move now to dynamic content. This is an example of dynamic content. Hello world, visits since master sent server restart 4. If we make refresh with F5 to this servlet, we will obtain what? If we make refresh, we will obtain hello world, visit since master sent server restart. Here will be 5, not 1, 5. Yes. If we make refresh to the here. So the refresh to the client, the refresh to the client, not to the server. But if we make refresh to the server, if we restart the server, the counter of the visit will be 1. Yes. Another refresh here. So the visits will be 6. I will explain you. So refresh to web browser. That means execute servlet, and in the servlet the visits will be visits plus plus, so 5 will be 6, etc. But if we make restart to web server, that means we will execute the servlet as in this case the visits will be 1. Why 1? I will explain you why 1. So this is dynamic content, the servlet. So what is the name of the servlet in our example? The name of this servlet, hello counter. Very good. So hello counter. Why this is a servlet? Why we can say that public class hello counter is a servlet? Why? Because it extends HTTP servlet. This is yes, because extends HTTP servlet. This is the important thing. If we have a class that extends HTTP servlet, that means this is a servlet. It is clear? After that, we have private int visit equals 0. What's this? Private int visits equals 0. It is an attribute. In the Java jargon, we said that it is an attribute. It is an attribute of the class hello counter. Okay? This is our doget. The first step is to make set content type, etc. After that, print writer server out response.getWriter. After that, visits plus plus. So what's the meaning of this instruction? Visits plus plus. Yes, that means we will increase visits if we execute. Yes, if we execute servlet, we will increase visits. Visits plus plus. It is clear? After that, we will write servlet out dot println, and this is the response. So this is our response. In my response, I will write p hello world and p. This is the first paragraph. After that, p this page has been visited plus visits. What's the meaning of plus visits? Plus visits plus. What's the meaning? Yes, it is a concatenation, not incremental by one, not increment by one. It is a concatenation. That means in the response, all this will be displayed. So in the response, I will obtain hello world. This page is viewed. After that, plus visits, that means here the value of visits, the value of the attribute visits. It is clear? Okay. So here in our example, if I execute, let's suppose that for the first iteration or first execution, if I execute this servlet, what is the number of visits displayed? 1, very good. So visits will be 0. After that, visits plus plus will be 1. It is clear? For the second execution, 2 or 1? We have visits 0 here. After that, visits plus plus. 1 or 2? Normally, normally visits equal 0 here. The visits will be 0. After that, visits plus plus will be 1. But really, not 1, we will obtain 2. Why 2, not 1? Sabrin, why 1? That means for the first execution, why 1? for the second execution. So for the second execution, normally I want to execute hello counter another time for the second execution. We have private int visits equals 0, so visits equals 0. After that, visits plus plus. Normally in the second execution, I will obtain also 1, but really I will obtain 2, not 1. Yes, because here, why we will obtain 2? Because in the servlet, we will create only one instance of the servlet. So the server create only one instance, one object. So for the first instruction, the number of visits is 0, will be 1. After that, for the second execution, we will execute only doget. For the second execution, we will execute only doget. So 1 plus 1 will be 2. For the third execution, we will execute only doget. Why? Because the server create only one object of our servlet. Only one object. So the instruction private int visit equals 0 will be executed only one time, only in the first execution. It is clear or not? So if I will write this instruction here, if this instruction will be, this instruction will be here. Private int visit equals 0 and toget. In this case, for the first execution, I will obtain 1. For the second execution, I will obtain 1, etc. Only 1. Because when I execute another time hello counter, I will execute doget. So if I have private int visit equals 0, that means visit will be, the value of visit will be 0. After that, visits plus plus will be 1. But if private int visit is not in the method doget, in this case, I will obtain 1, 2, 3, etc. It is clear? So if I restart the server, that means the server will create a new object of hello counter. In this case, I will obtain 1. It is clear or not? Okay, this is the servlet life cycle. So servlet API life cycle methods. Init, called when servlet is instantiated and must return before any other methods will be called. Service is a method called directly by server when an HTTP request is received. Default service method calls doget or dopost, and destroy called when server shut down. Destroy. So this is an example of a method init, and in this example we attempt to initialize a visits variable from file. It is clear? Okay, let's move now to parameter data. So this is this part is very important in servlets. Why? Because using this part we can process the request to get all the parameters data from this request. After that we can prepare the response according to this request. So the request object which implements HTTP servlet request provides information from the HTTP request to the servlet. One type of information is parameter data, which is information from the query string portion of the HTTP request. So this is an example of a servlet. We want to execute this servlet. So the name of this servlet is print this with argument equal a string. So query string with one parameter. So query string syntax and semantics. We can find multiple parameters separated by AND. So in this example, for example here, what is the name of, in this example, what is the name of our servlet? The name of our servlet in this example is print this. Yes. How many arguments we have here? We have, this is the first argument, this is the second argument. The first argument is arg, the second argument is color. That means we want to execute print this with the value of arg equal string and the value of color equal red. So the order of parameters does not matter and all parameter values are string. We can find non-alphanumeric characters like this. So this is to represent this character. So percentage 27 is to represent this character. Okay, so there are many methods here to get this parameters. For example, get parameter names returns enumeration of string values representing all parameter names in the query string. For example, here, if we invocate here in this example, if we use get parameter names, we will obtain arg and color. Get parameter. So get parameter string representing value of parameter named name or null if parameter is not presented in the query. And get parameter values returns array of string representing all values of parameter named name or null. This is an example. So in our request, we have HTTP request color equal red. So if we want to get the value of color in PHP, how we can get this value in PHP? We have to write what? In PHP. We have to write $_ get. After that, yes, here color. It is clear. This is in PHP. In servlet, we write request dot get parameter color. It is clear. So in our example, the value of color will be red, the string red. So in PHP we write $_get color. In Java servlet we write string color equal request dot get parameter color. Okay, if we have another example like this. HTTP servlet argument equal 1 and argument equal 5 and argument equal 7 and B equal #h or hello. So in this servlet, how many arguments we have in this request, in this HTTP request? 4, very good. But here args is the same. We have the same parameter with many values. In this case, we write string as a vector or as an array, tab equal request, and here not get parameter but dot get parameter values. I will write I will repeat. So if we have many arguments like this, I will prepare an array string tab equal request dot get parameter values, and here we write args. So tab, can you give me the length of tab here? What is the length of tab? 3, very good. So tab will be an array with the 3 elements. So this is tab. The first value of tab, the first value will be 1. The second value will be 5. The third value will be 7. So if we have many arguments with the same name in servlet, we can use the method get parameter values. If we have only one argument like this, one argument with hello, we can write here string value equal request dot get, here dot, no, is a method, get parameter without value of B. So what is the value of val? The value of val not B, the value of val here. Val will be what? Will be hello. The value of B. Yes, hello. It is clear how we can get parameters from an HTTP request with a Java servlet. Okay, just a moment. I want to save the attendance. Any questions about the method? So the method get parameter and the method get parameter values. It is clear. Okay.